Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the bench. This is a Borg Warner K0422-582 turbocharger. This is from a Mazda CX-7, but this should be the same turbocharger used on any of the MZR 2.3 DISI engines. So the same ones found in the Mazda 3 and the Mazda 6. So this turbocharger has been injecting oil into the intake stream of the engine, causing the car to burn lots and lots of oil and smoke a little bit. So we're going to be rebuilding this. Now if at any point in time this whole process goes sideways, I'm going to call it quits and we're going to just throw a new cartridge in there or a whole new turbo, but we'll see how this goes. Hopefully nothing will be damaged and this will go smoothly. So this turbo is a good candidate for this because, let's see how much you can see that. It does have some radial play, but it has almost no axial play, which is good. This turbocharger is being rebuilt because it's leaking oil. The car still has plenty of power. The turbo hasn't failed completely. I don't see any marks on the inside of the housing indicating that the wheel has come into contact with the housing, which means it's a good candidate for a rebuild. If the wheel had come into contact with the housing, you might as well just get a new cartridge or a whole new turbo, because to fix it would cost more than just getting a new cartridge or a new turbo. But because this hasn't failed completely, we should be able to just replace the seals and be good to go, which is going to save a lot of money. So we'll dive right into this and start pulling all the parts apart. You get the wastegate off. Okay, so you want to mark this so that when I go to put it back together, it's in exactly the same spot that it was originally. Because I don't want to mess with trying to realign it. And then, just to make sure, I'm going to mark it on this side too. Okay. Now loosen the V-band clamp. This is stuck. Why is it stuck? There it goes. Okay, where is my hammer? Just want to do this very gently. Finally got it out. Here's the exhaust housing. Okay, so this is probably a good time to mention that I've already decided that I'm not going to fully rebuild this turbo. I'm just going to replace the cartridge. Excuse me. And the reason for that is quite simple. It's simply just not coming apart very well, and I just have a gut feeling that if I try to rebuild this cartridge, it's just not going to end well. And I don't foresee me getting this apart without damaging anything, so I'm going to go ahead and just get a new cartridge for this turbo. We have to get the old one out first. Now the Borg Warner, for some reason they decided to go ahead and glue this in. See, this is turning, but only because the bearing is still turning. And you can see there's a bunch of carbon and caked up junk on here that was holding the housing on. So since we don't care about saving the old cartridge, and there it is. So you can see there's this red goop from where they glued it on. I don't know why you want to glue it on. There's our compressor wheel. So we're just going to get a whole new turbo cartridge mounted in the old housing. That's going to save me a lot of time and energy anyway. So now I got to go ahead and order said cartridge. Okay, so our housings are all cleaned up in preparation for the new CHRA, which is right here. Now this is from Rotomaster, and the part number will be in the description, which I have taken this out before, but then I put it back in for safekeeping. And there is our new CHRA. Okay, so I need to clean up this in preparation for the RTV that's going to seal it to the new housing. So before I put this on and while I'm waiting for it to dry, now because I'm putting in a new CHRA, this does pose a slight problem with the alignment because the marks were on the old CHRA. Luckily, there is a locating pin on the exhaust housing, which of course matches up with the one on the new CHRA, and then the marks are left on our housings. So basically, I know that this pin is supposed to line up with the oil hole, which then lines up with the mark on the compressor housing. So I'm going to go ahead and carefully mark the center line of this oil hole so that I can line it up when I put it back on. Now on this particular application, having the compressor housing clocked perfectly isn't critical, simply because it's all rubber hoses going to it. There's nothing hard mounted to it that's going to suffer if it's off by just a tiny little bit. So as long as we're pretty close, we should be good. So we're going to be just using some black RTV to seal the compressor housing to the CHRA. Just put a nice little bead there. Now we'll carefully set the new CHRA onto the turbo housing. You don't need to line it up perfectly right now because it will rotate on that plate until I bolt it down. So carefully, don't want to damage the compressor wheel. And just to make sure it's seated all the way, just gently. Now you see we can still rotate the CHRA because the bearing plate is what's sealing to the housing. So now I can line up my marks so that it is clocked correctly, and we'll install the bolts. Okay, so our CHRA is now installed to our compressor housing. It will no longer rotate. Now we can install the exhaust housing onto the CHRA and the compressor housing. But there is a small problem. If you'll notice, there's a pin on our exhaust housing. There's also a pin on the CHRA. I presume this is because the CHRA is intended to be able to be used on multiple vehicles, not just this one. So we need to pull that pin out. Alright, it's just a locating pin, so it pops out nice and easily. Just wipe down the mating surface here. Okay. What's the best way to do this? Okay, so I am going to put the compressor housing and the CHRA into the exhaust housing because it's lighter and I will have an easier time lining it up and not hitting anything. Gonna lower that in carefully. And rotate until the pin lines up, and we're in. So now, get the V-band clamp. It's around here somewhere. So that's it. Our turbocharger is done. New CHRA is in. So this is ready to be reinstalled into the vehicle. Now I will be posting links to the videos of the removal and installation of this turbocharger once those videos are up. But this is where I'm going to leave off for this video. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below.